Welcome to this episode of the Hospitality Finance Podcast. Your host is Pam Rousseau, and she'll be having candid conversations with finance executives in the hospitality space as well as other industry experts. Each episode will explore what shapes these leaders, their take and experience with mentors, and an experience with change management. They will share their views on industry challenges and strategies to overcome them.
Welcome to this episode of the Hospitality Finance Podcast. I am your host, Pam Rousseau, and our guest today is Leah Roberg. Leah is the CFO for OTH Hotels and Resorts. Leah, welcome. I am excited to share more about you with our guest and to hear your story.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Very
Pleasure
excited.
is all mine. I'm excited as well. This has been a long time coming, right? You and I met at High Tech last year in Toronto, and I think we've been trying to get something on the calendar pretty much since then. But
pretty much. Yes.
Here we are. We're what, like almost 8 weeks away from the next High Tech, but we made it. We're here.
Yes. We made it under a year. That's all that matters.
Pat on our backs. It just has been crazy, right? With a lot of travel and things coming up. So
yes. You know, things are slowly getting back to normal ever since COVID. So,
Yep. We're figuring it out.
Yes.
Good. I'm glad and I know that we were trying to do this in person, but our calendars just never aligned. So this is better than nothing. We're here. We'll make it happen.
Yes, we will.
So Leah, let's talk a little bit about your background, right? I know you're a Rhode Island native.
I am.
You are. Can you share with us a bit about what it was like growing up there and like how you feel that it impacted who you are today?
So I grew up in Westerly, Rhode Island, so the southernmost point to the border of Connecticut. And it was a very small town, right? Everybody knew everybody. Everybody knew everybody's business, right? You don't really have any privacy in a small town. But growing up there, was right on the beach, right? So we have a lot of hotels, things of that nature. And so, right, when I was, 16 years old, right, I went out looking just for a summer job, to make some money. I went to a mom and pop hotel on our beach, little guy with 29 rooms. I started there at front desk that summer. I didn't leave them for 6 years. So I grew with them and eventually just managed their whole property, did housekeeping. They actually had water sports, right? Jet skis, things of that nature. I am thankful that I grew up on the beach and got the opportunity when I was young to find my passion. And then, of course, the accounting side jumped in through high school. And I had a great teacher, Miss Delilah. I'll never forget her. And she made me fall in love with the accounting side. So I'm very thankful for my small town because it gave me a lot more opportunities, I think, than a big city may have. Newport, Rhode Island, obviously, right? It's part of Rhode Island as well. There's Narragansett, Rhode Island, so very big beach towns, with Rhode Island being 45 minutes to get across. It's very small. And so there was just lots of opportunities to learn a lot of the trade so very quickly. And I still go back there and I still visit those hotels and I still go stay in them and still connect with everybody that I learned from, grew from. Yeah, it made me who I am for sure.
That's amazing. I think we all have that Miss Delilah, right? That stays with us for the rest of our lives. I mean, I know for me, I remember her clearly, and she was my literature teacher. And when I graduated high school, I actually wanted to be a lit professor. And it was just based on this inspiration from that passion that she taught with, right? It's amazing that the hospitality bug got you at such a young age. Good for you that you were able to combine both of your passions and look at the trajectory it's paved out for you.
Yeah, I was very lucky. And, my first job with that mom and pop, it was the Sandy Shore Hotel in Westerly. His CPA actually, at 18 took me under her wings and she started teaching me the accounting side. So I got the best of both worlds at a very young age. You either love it or hate it, but this one was definitely a passion for me. And here I am, over 20 years later, still doing it. So.
And doing it with a smile. I mean, didn't we just talk about that? How despite all the craziness and the hecticness, anytime I talk to you, Leah, you always have this amazing smile that just lights up your face. It's like, even when I sense your stress because you're telling me all the things on your plate,
Right.
It never projects. Like you would never see it from looking at you. So kudos to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, a smile goes a long way.
I'm
It does.
sure. I'm sure. But well, thank you for sharing that. So let's pivot slightly. And can you talk to me about your favorite vacation destination?
My favorite vacation destination. It's an interesting one. I would probably say New Hampshire. Shockingly enough, obviously right, New England, very close to Rhode Island. But I like to ski. So in the winter, I get the skiing and I get everything out of it that way. And then in the summer, you could do the lazy river, just the natural rivers there, and you just float down the river all summer and enjoy the sun. So regardless of the time of year, it's just a full year destination that I just love to go and relax and unwind. I would definitely say New Hampshire, probably Conway area around there is my favorite.
And let me ask you something. When you're vacationing, are Junebug and Jake with you?
Yes. If I'm more local, yes. When I used to live up in Rhode Island, we used to just jet up to Conway. Yeah, they would go with me, and oh yeah.
So what type of dogs are they?
So June and Jake are both German Shepherd mixes. June has Pit Bull as well as Yellow Lab. Jake has German Shepherd, Dutch Shepherd, Border Collie, and a little bit of Pit Bull.
All right. I want to see pictures when we meet up in Charlotte this year.
Yes, I will. I have a whole camera load of them because those are my kids.
If you're anything like me, I can understand that. So now that we've talked about your favorite destination, can you share with us a bucket list hotel that you have?
Bucket list hotel that I have. I mean, I love the brands and things of that nature, but I don't necessarily have a bucket list hotel, but I like the eclectic hotel, if I call it anything, where they have their own personality. It's not really cookie cutter. So the independence, I really always veer toward independent hotels that just have their own personality, that, you feel like you're in the local community, right? That kind of whole vibe. And it really brings out I don't think there's one, but there's definitely a certain style, lifestyle, more boutique-y, things like that with good F&B offerings and amenities, spas and stuff like that. Definitely is where I will always veer to.
I would echo that. Every time I travel, obviously I'm not always flexible in where I can stay.
Right.
But when I do have that flexibility, I gear more towards those unique experiences just because it feels like you immerse yourself in the culture of the location a little bit more than, awesome.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Okay. So to round out this first portion of our podcast, have you ever had a life-changing experience? And if so, can you share?
I would say life-changing. Right before COVID, I decided to buy a restaurant. And so I, wanted to do something different. That was mine. And my timing couldn't be more horrendous, to be honest with you.
But you didn't have a crystal ball, right?
You couldn't foresee. So it was 2019 when I purchased the restaurant and things of that nature, right? And COVID hit. So it was definitely life-changing because it taught me a lot. Just because when it's yours, it's a little different. I give it to any small business owners. It's not easy to just get the day-to-day, and especially after COVID with everything that they face from wage increases just to keep their business afloat, inflation. But that was eye-opening from, managing the day-to-day, and it's 24/7. It taught me a lot, but I will say it's just I found out that's not for me. I actually sold the restaurant in September of last year. It was quick in, and I was like, but I had a string of bad luck. But I take, you don't get the good without the bad sometimes, and there's so much I learned. But I love my favorite part of the whole thing, of course, was the people, right? I had great customers, great regulars. They come in, they were just fantastic. The staff was amazing. They bent over backwards to make things happen, and jive with what we had to handle every day. So I would consider it life-changing just for me personally. Absolutely. And what it taught me.
It's funny, Leah. You're the second person that when I have asked this question about a life-changing experience has shared something that taught them what they did not want career-wise.
Yes.
So when I spoke to Jeffrey Lee from Montage, he shared a similar experience where while he was in college, he did an internship thinking he knew what path he wanted. And it
Right.
quickly taught him he needed to pivot, that was not for him. So,
Yes.
good. I mean, I'm glad you did that, because I think had you not ventured out and taken that chance, you may have had a different type of regret, right? And
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
even worse. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for me, I think life's part of twists and turns. Not everything is a smooth path, but the only way we deal with the rocky, we have to deal with the rocky to get to the smooth, and it gets rocky again. But that's what makes us who we are and teaches us our lessons in life of what we really want out of it. So that was some of my rockiness.
Well, kudos to that rockiness, right? Because it's made you who you are today. I'll take it.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk now a bit about your career and mentors you've had throughout. Can you talk to us a little bit about your career path, right? So we know about this motel you started working at the front desk when you were 16, ended up managing the whole property. Talk to us about that progression that brings you now over to a CFO position with OTH Hotels and Resorts.
Yes, absolutely. So the mom and pop, right? 16. I left them for about a year to go to college when I turned 18, and then I came back and was going to school now at URI. So it gave me great flexibility to get my accounting degree, and then carried on into the Newport market in Rhode Island, which was much bigger, which I think more on the luxury end, I would say. Westerly was more, mom and pop kind of great stuff, but Newport definitely has the mansions and the castles and all the stuff that, drives a little bit more on the luxury market. And then I was lucky enough that I went back into Watch Hill, Rhode Island, which is, very fancy, if you will. Really high profile people have homes there. And Chuck Royce, who is, he's part of he started the penny funds, actually, stock market. He bought the Ocean House Hotel in Watch Hill, Rhode Island. It's a Forest 5-star now, right? And so he renovated it, brought it back to its grandeur because it was outdated. And that was my real first, I want to say, accounting job in hotels versus these other things where you're kind of wearing a lot of hats. And so from there, my boss, my first mentor was John Norton. And he took me in out of college, not really. I could do some things, but I wasn't a wizard at all. But he really taught me about accounts payable and accounts receivable and accruals and labor and overtime and all of the things that come with the accounting side, finance side of controlling the financials. And when our time was really up, I'd outgrown all the roles there. He actually connected me with Mike Straub. And so Mike was looking for an assistant director of finance in Trump Doral, when it got taken over, because he was working with Trump at the time. And funny enough, Mike is my greatest mentor for sure. I've had a lot, but he's the one that has stuck by me for many years now. We still talk very frequently. It's funny because we always laugh because, when he got my resume from John, he said, I didn't want to hire you. He openly, he told me, he's like, I gave it to the DOF at the property, but I said, yeah, I'll do my friend a favor type of a thing, right? But I don't think, she's anything worthwhile, to be honest. And it's hysterical. And we talked about it. I said, when I met him, I didn't honestly like him. I said, I think you're just very crude. And we laugh about it all the time. But, the director of finance for Trump Doral, she liked me. So I got the job and I, left Rhode Island and moved to Miami. And then that's when me and Mike really, there was obviously some turnover, transition that always happens, and a new conversion. Mike spent some time and we got to know each other. And then he just really taught me, honestly, I think everything I know today.
Mike is amazing. And I can see why that would be your first impression of him. I remember meeting him at High Tech and just standing next to him and being like, okay, what part of this man is serious? You really couldn't tell, right? Because he's just so over the top with what comes out of his mouth. But it's in a very transparent and honest way. He really tells you things the way he sees them. Yes. And that's actually refreshing. So
Yes. Yeah. Mike's, I still bounce. We talk all the time. If I ever have questions, he's still mentoring me. I don't think that'll ever go away. And I'm lucky to have found him. I tell him all the time, I would not be where I am today without him. Absolutely. And so worked for him for years, worked for him for 5 years, 6 years, and grew with, Mike within the Trump organization or Trump hotel side, and then left Trump. And that's when I did some consulting work. I did some financial consulting with hotels, but I also was doing the restaurant, maybe midlife crisis, not sure still. But then I remembered, right? And I really realized that I enjoyed hospitality, accounting, and just, when you leave it, you think, okay, I'm ready to do a new path. And that just made me realize how much I enjoyed it. And so I came back with first working with the Perriam Hotel Group out of Chicago. And I met Chris Bybee, who's another mentor of mine. Still talk to him. He's fabulous. And then left them. And now I'm here with OTH. So I've been very lucky.
That's been a great growth path, right? I feel like every role has built on the previous one.
It has.
Of all of these, which one would you say was the most challenging and why?
The most challenging, I think honestly that they're all challenging in different ways. Right. I don't know if I'd say one is worse than the other, because it's really dependent upon, right, with the Perriam, they were looking to grow, right? It was during COVID, right, dealing with all the different loans and different things, right, to make sure you're protecting the assets. Do you stay open? Do you close, right? All those different challenges that we dealt with the Perriam. With OTH, it's now, okay, we've made it through COVID. Now, how do we, right? We're kind of still a startup, right? The company was formed in 2020. And so now we're getting to the point, it's like, okay, how do we look at that growth trajectory? How do we look at different things? And are we ready for that? Are we consistent? Do we have our systems? Do we have different things that we can just grow quickly? But then if I look back at Trump, my days with Mike, it was different challenges in the sense of international. So a lot of international properties, not just US based, right? And so you have the different currencies and different governments and different laws. So I think there's challenges in everything, in every company, something you'll never get away from, but it's not necessarily about the challenges, it's about the wins after, right? How do you handle it? How do you look forward? How do you plan, strategize, and execute? That allows us to continually grow. So I think that I wouldn't consider anything the worst or the most or anything. I think that I like challenges. So I enjoy looking at it.
We're masochists, aren't we, Leah? We're masochists. No, but honestly, I think that's just a testament to your positive attitude. So kudos to you for that, right? It comes back to that observation I made in the beginning, how you, whatever's going on, you always have this amazing smile, and it ties into your outlook. A challenge is just an opportunity to grow and learn, right? So I think OTH is very lucky to have you with that, any organization, right? To have somebody in your position with that outlook, especially when traversing challenges.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And speaking of, this takes us into our next segment. What I want to talk about now is a time where you have faced a challenge for whichever organization, where you had to do a complete workflow overhaul, change some process that was pretty much ingrained in the day-to-day of that organization, and you identified a need to disrupt that. So
yes.
Can you share with us, what was that status quo? What was that shift in process and thinking that you had to bring your team to rally around, and what was the end result of that?
I think the biggest thing maybe is, coming into OTH. I came in just almost a little under 2 years ago now. But because, right, OTH was formed just 4 years ago, right, there's a lot of things that, when you're formed, and then you've got, 12 properties, it's like a quick, like, how do we just keep moving and operating and going in, right? And so coming in, the prior management company for our ownerships had a centralized environment for accounting. OTH is a decentralized environment. So, coming in, a lot of the larger aspects, which I would expect from a director of finance or controller, were not being done on a property level, just because they never had to, right? There was always somebody in a centralized environment that was doing that. And I've got a couple of rock stars on my team who really, for the past 3 years, has still been playing that DOF role for all the properties in this one group. And so for me coming in, it was, okay, how do we transition them? How do we get them the skills and the talents and now the, experience that they need in order to really be their own CFOs for their assets or their properties? And so that, I think, has been the greatest strive that we've made. It's been a lot of work and a lot of training, but I love it because I love mentoring people. But just in under 2 years, they're all technically CFOs. They're all able to do their own bank reconciliations, all their balance sheet reconciliations. They're closing their own books. They're doing it within a 5-day period. They're really, I can have conversations when we talk about, metrics and KPIs and they understand it, right? They're doing their own forecasts, their own budgets, where prior to the GMs were always doing that. We're a select service model. But now they're all jumping on board. They're doing it. They're excited. We have conversations. They're actually asking questions and they're, so I think for me, that was the greatest challenge coming in and realizing that the directors of finance we had were not necessarily trained to be directors of finance. And so getting them over that hump and that building that confidence and feeling that they know what they're talking about with their exec team members and feeling like they're a critical component to the success of the property is probably my greatest feat so far with OTH and probably, with anybody, because mentoring is my big thing. I love it. So
congratulations on identifying that, right? Because ultimately we're only as strong as our weakest link.
I say that all the time.
And you pretty much just strengthen your team across the board, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of leaders often fear for their position and hold their cards close to their heart. And you pretty much did the reverse of that. And you said, no, I'm going to empower you to each be as good or better than I am.
Right.
So that's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's critical. I feel like nowadays, right, when there's a leadership change from a corporate perspective, right, a lot of people fear that there's going to be, they clean house, they bring in their people, things of that nature. And my style is quite the opposite. It's like, well, what do I have and how do we get them to learn and grow and be who they should be, who they have the potential to be. And so that was our angle and it's great. I have such a great team, a strong team. They are passionate. They're proud of their work. It's really been great.
Doesn't get better than that. And the loyalty that you build with that strategy is, I'm sure, incomparable.
It is.
It's awesome.
It is. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit now about the industry as a whole, what trends we are seeing, and where you see the future of hospitality finance going. So, Leah, what are the biggest challenges you're facing today, and how are you preparing OTH hotels for that?
I think the biggest challenge that we're facing, and probably like anybody else, is resources. It's a people business. And with the whole technology just taking off and AI and different things of that nature, right? The opportunities that are out there, it's a matter of if the business will change as a whole. There's a lot of hotels out there who are moving more to technology. You do your own self check-in, digital check-ins. You don't need to pass by the front desk to say hello and, get your key. You can just use your phone. And so it's how do you, from a hospitality perspective, how do you still capture that service or the things that, make it what hospitality is, touching everybody, touching people. And not letting technology kind of take that gap away. And then, of course, the other side is coming out of COVID. A lot of people left the industry. They did because of safety, security. Everybody wants to, you have an income, you need an income. And so I don't think we're still back to where we used to be. So getting out, I think even in colleges and things like that and looking at the new hospitality management degrees that are out there and seeing who's enrolling, just watching if that's even kicking back in. And it's slowly coming back around. But I think that touching just the kids right in college and getting them into interns and things like that and making sure they have the passion for it. Cause it's still out there. There's still great talent coming. There's still great talent out there and we just need to bring it back. We need to have people have the passion again and not feel that the industry is risky for their personal well-being. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges in balancing that with the technology component. That I think just everybody in hotels is looking at and F&B. In regards to the market, it's an election year. So, we watch it very closely because being an election year, because, we can swing one way or the other. It depends on the markets, right? And the different locations. We have the hotels. So, anything in the DC market, obviously, is planning for a nice influx of revenues, I'm sure, at the later half of this year. Right. And just the outcome of the election can really go one way or the other in other markets, right? And unfortunately, politics has become a huge thing. And so we just really have to monitor it and the reaction people may have one way or the other, good or bad.
Absolutely. So how do you feel technology has impacted financial operations in hospitality? And what opportunities do you feel it presents for improving efficiencies?
The overall impact rate is for finance. Anyway, we used to have accounts payable and people who literally just did invoicing, things of that nature. Now you can get it all to go through emails, and there's a third party somewhere that are putting it in for you. So you really don't need that person from a resource perspective. So technology is helpful in some ways because of the speed of it as well. Everybody wants real time at their fingertips. How much do we spend? How much revenue? I want a daily P&L nowadays because we can track labor to that degree now. Where back in the day, you had your green and white paper and you're doing it all manual. But I think from a financial perspective, technology is coming along, but at the same time, there's the AP function, let's say, but not to the level that I think other industries are seeing in technology when it comes to hotels. So we still need somebody to actually analyze our financials. We can't use AI for that because AI still cannot tell you, hey, yeah, you had some old invoices that hit and that's what's costing you. But oh, wait, it just can't read enough. So you still need the analysis to be done by people, and technology hasn't come far enough to take that over from a financial perspective. And billing still has to happen. Reconciliations still have to happen. So luckily, from a finance perspective of hotels, it's not as far as long, I think, as some other sides of the hotel industry or the hospitality industry.
Yes. Fair enough. So
yes,
what would you like to see developed in the near future, technology-wise? What would create excitement in you?
I would like to see in the future, I think, more of an integration between systems. In the sense, there's integrations and it's not real time necessarily, right? So if you have a BI tool or a reporting tool, operators out there and they want to know every single minute what's happening. Quick moves on real time decisions that they can make because they have all the data at their fingertips. And while there's great tools out there, right? Profisort, phenomenal tool. But to get certain data, depending on purchase orders, what other systems, back office, ERPs, things of that nature, are being used, it's not necessarily real time. You still need somebody to go and update something. So I think that for me is the biggest thing. Is there's a lot of systems in the marketplace, and there's some obviously that are better than others, more robust than others. Depends on what size of your group, things of that nature. But I think the integration piece from a technology would be great if it could become real time.
That's awesome. Well, that sounds like it would be very beneficial, not just to you, but to many others out there. So hopefully somebody's listening to this and will make that happen. Who knows? So Leah, that pretty much concludes that portion. We have one more to go through, and this is the fun part. We're going to go through a series of rapid fire questions. So I'm just going to shoot them out, and you're going to say
dating, huh?
That's exactly what it is. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
All right. Beach or mountain?
Beach.
Favorite season?
Fall.
Favorite fall?
Ooh, it ends with us.
Okay. Cook or eat out?
Eat out.
What are we eating?
Chicken sandwich.
Okay. Your favorite hobby?
Reading.
What song is always on repeat?
Oh my goodness. I don't know. I have such an eclectic. Probably Tony Braxton. Anything Tony Braxton, honestly, is probably my favorite. Not gonna lie.
I'll take her any day. Absolutely. Yes. Famous person you'd like to meet?
Oh, Charlie Hunnam.
Okay. And what podcast is on your playlist?
My most recent is Female Financialist. First 100K.
Okay. I like it. I like it.
Yes. Yes.
And
Like,
that's it.
oh, that's it?
Yep. And that concludes this episode of the Hospitality
Awesome.
Finance Podcast.
That was
Leah,
great.
you were amazing. Thank you for being so gracious and sharing your story with our listeners. I look forward to seeing you in Charlotte in June.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you can find this episode wherever you stream your podcast. Drop us a line. Let us know, your thoughts. If you have any questions that you'd like me to follow up with Leah, I'll be more than happy to get them answered for you. So thank you, everyone. And I look forward to having you listen to our next episode.
I can't wait. So excited. Thank you for having me. This is fantastic.
Pleasure.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Hospitality Finance Podcast and invite you to subscribe to our channel. Like, comment, and share as we welcome feedback from our listeners. Find us on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. Thank you for listening, and make sure to tune in to the next episode.